It might sound obvious that if you want to improve a robot's software, you should improve its software. Agrim Gupta of Stanford University, however, begs to differ. He thinks you can also improve a robot's software by improving its hardware. That is, by letting the hardware adapt itself to the software's capabilities. As they describe in Nature Communications, he and his colleagues have devised a way of testing this idea. In doing so, they have brought to robotics the principles of evolution by natural selection. They've also cast the spotlight on an evolutionary idea that dates from the 1890s, but which has hitherto proved hard to demonstrate.
Lead in time is the amount of time that elapses between a business placing an order with a supplier for more stock or raw materials and the delivery of the goods to the business. Businesses want the lead time to be as short as possible, so that they can meet their customer orders and minimize the time between paying for the stock and receiving the feedback from the customer. However, this may not happen due to a number of factors, such as delays in the supplier receiving the order, or the breakdown of the supplier's lorries delivering the stock to the business.
Pancake ice is an intermediate step between an open water configuration and a totally frozen body of water. We know that a combination of very cold temperatures and waves are necessary to make the pancakes form in the first place. After these waves make it form, there's an entire spectrum, so a wide collection of frequency waves that they would encounter. Whether they be from wind shear or they be from the ocean long, slow waves. Easiest way to study it is to look at each individual range of frequencies, one after another, sort of gain a wider perspective on how the pancake ice interacts with waves. The ultimate aim of our research is to better inform the meteorological modelers of the world who are looking at Antarctica as well as the Arctic and some of the other cold regions of the world. We're conducting work in the Sea Ice Wave Wind Interaction Facility here at UniMelb. It was designed by the head of our department, Jason Monti. He had the foresight to use a modular design, which means there are individual sections that are stacked together. So since we're built to the space that we have in this lab right now, when we move to Fisherman's Bend, we can extend our model and add a few more sections to make it much longer. And that will enable us to have longer run times, have more developed waves, as well as add some other possibilities for study.
Okay, so we've discussed the mosquito's appearance and life cycle. Now let's cover what mosquitoes are most famous for, sucking blood. Mosquitoes suck blood from various animals. You see, a mosquito has a long feeder appendage in its mouth. The appendage penetrates an animal's skin. Then the mosquito sucks the animal's blood. Interestingly, only females suck blood. The blood they get enables them to reproduce.
How so?
Proteins in the blood they suck help them produce the eggs they lay. So they don't use the blood as food. For food, both female and male mosquitoes usually eat nectar from plants. Tragically, mosquitoes kill more people than any other creature on Earth. Their bites don't kill, though, but the diseases that mosquitoes carry do. Millions of people die every year from malaria, dengue fever, yellow fever, and other diseases that mosquitoes carry. When mosquitoes bite people, they transmit whatever diseases they happen to be carrying. Each year, more than 2 million people die from mosquito-carried diseases. That's a big number, huh? Unfortunately, controlling mosquitoes is difficult since they breed and spread rapidly. They lay their eggs in stagnant water like in swamps. So draining these areas can control them. Insecticides, insect killers, can also eliminate them. DDT is one such insecticide. It's highly effective, but it's banned in many countries. Some people claim that DDT harms certain animals. Still, in countries that use DDT, there are fewer deaths by diseases transmitted by mosquitoes.
Music, film, and video game makers face a new online digital world, and some are testing a revolutionary pricing system, pay what you want. But a new study finds that when consumers can name their own price, many opt out of buying at all. The study is in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. For the research, tour boat passengers posed for photos. Each boat ride announced a price of $15 per picture, but they then charged either $15, $5, or the option to pay what you want. As expected, the fewest tourists purchased photos when they had to pay full price, but more customers bought photos when they cost $5 than when prices were pay what you want, which could have saved passengers even more. The researchers suggest that choosing to pay less than an announced, lower than expected price made people feel cheap. With choices then limited to spending more money or feeling like a tightwad, potential customers simply opted out of the purchase. So on sea or land, a low set price may catch the most fish.
Widespread death of honeybees has some farmers fretting, because if honeybees disappear, who will pollinate their crops?
Almost any kind of insect you can think of.
Margie Mayfield, an ecologist at the University of Queensland in Australia.
Globally speaking, flies are probably the second largest group of crop pollinators. In particular, a group called hoverflies or syrphid flies. And these are these sort of large-eyed flies that if you take a hike, you sometimes see them hovering in front of your face.
Along with hoverflies, the army of underappreciated pollinators includes butterflies, moths, beetles, ants, and wasps. Mayfield and her colleagues analyzed more than 36 studies on pollination, covering 17 crop plants grown on 5 continents. And they found that some of these underdog insects accounted for some 40% of the flower visits. And some of the crops in their review, especially tropical ones like mangoes and custard apples, did not rely on honeybees at all. Even commodities like canola did fine without the bees. The meta-analysis is in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Mayfield says part of the difficulty in gauging the importance of bees starts with the research methods. A third of the studies they initially considered, for example, ignored everything but bees.
The European honeybee is
I'd like to start this lecture on the use of technology in education by talking about a subject that's probably close to all your hearts, which is the way that student work is graded. And specifically, I want to talk to you about some of the ways written assignments or essays are marked. Well, as you all know, traditionally writing done by a student is checked, marked and graded by a teacher, a tutor, or, in some situations, an examiner. In other words, a real person. Software to mark essays has been in development for some time, and grading software on computers is already used by some universities to mark exams, but it is still viewed with suspicion by some. How can a computer mark an essay, they ask? Well, a recent study compared the human ability to give grades to student essays to the ability of a computer to do the same job. In the study, over 16,000 essays were used. These essays had already been previously marked by at least one trained human grader. The study showed that the essay marks given by the computer software were almost the same as those from human graders, which I think you'll agree is a controversial result, and it's likely to make us as teachers re-evaluate how we grade written work.
The men of the North Woods tribes were the hunters. The hunting season began in the fall and continued until midwinter. These expeditions frequently took the hunters away from the village for long periods of time. Moose, deer, beaver, bear, and elk were the animals sought. Large deer drives were common, and small animals were taken with snares or the bow and arrow.
Did the women ever go hunting with the men?
The women often accompanied their husbands on hunting parties. Their job was to take charge of the camps.
Do you mean they just cooked for the men? I thought the Native Americans had more of a system of equality.
Overall, men and women shared the labor. On hunting expeditions, women basically supported the men whose job was to procure the game. On the other hand, women controlled other realms of life. For example, women managed all of the agricultural operations. Also, a woman headed each clan, and these women were respected for their role as keepers of the clan.
I hate the sight of blood. Looking at it makes me go all weak at the knees. I can't even look at my own blood. I don't know why. The thing I hate most is giving blood for a medical check. I fainted once after I saw my blood in a small bottle. If I have a nosebleed, I have to sit down for 30 minutes before I feel better. It's impossible for me to watch operations on TV. I wish I could donate blood to others. I can't. I know giving blood is really important, but I'm not brave enough. One thing about blood I do find interesting is blood types. I think your blood type can affect your personality. I know that in some countries, people with blood type A would not be a good romantic match for someone with blood type O.
The wealthy world is aging fast. In 1950, around 1 in every 12 people in high-income countries was over 65. By 2050, it's expected to be more like 1 in 4. And it's storing up a big problem.
It is a feat that we can live longer and that we can enjoy being alive for longer, but it's expensive.
When people retire, they start to cost society more money. And the costs will soon be unsustainable.